will we give it to? I think that's like the most unfortunate thing that we want to be secretive about. No, no, take it, take it. It's all yours. So coming to the right lung, which is the emotional part, all of you could feel your emotional part. Why are emotions so important? Because if my emotional side is not healthy, my learning side is never going to work. Am I making sense to you? Now, all of you may have an experience of having heard some bad news or somebody who treated you badly and you were feeling upset about it. And at that time, somebody was trying to teach you something new or asking you, where is that book? Where is that thing? Were you able to focus on the learning or the book, or were you still overwhelmed by the emotion? You were naturally overwhelmed by the emotion. So, also with our children, when they're overwhelmed by emotion, I've already told them that you're not good enough through my actions or my words. And then I'm saying, come, let's do 2 plus 2. How do you think the child will be able to learn? So, the first emotional need for any child, special child, child not on the spectrum, any child, any human being, the first need is always security. If I feel safe, if I feel secure, I'm somebody who's capable of bringing out my best. So, what does security mean for the child? Those of you who are really interested in reading about it, you can go on to attachment theories online. There are a lot of videos to talk about attachment theories. But let me just give you a simple example of what it means. It means that if I have a good bond with my teacher, with my parent, I am in a better position to respond to my environment, including learning. If I have an insecure bonding, which means I'm always thrashed, saying, you're not good enough, do better, can do better. What is this can do better nonsense that we say as teachers and as parents? Does the child know better? If any child knows better, do you think that child is going to do less and come and take feedback from you? It's like, ma'am, I want to do better, so you give me a can do better. A child who can do better would have already done it. If they are not doing better, they're not feeling safe enough to try more. When you feel safe enough, now I'll give you an example. All of you probably had a parent at some point who was trying to make you climb a tree. We come from that generation where we climb trees. So the father or mother will say, no, no, jump, I'm holding you, you'll not fall. You have that experience? I definitely do. So what happened when you knew that your parent was reliable? You climbed higher. When you did not trust your parent enough, you were like, no, I'm not climbing. Are you all with me? Some of you are just deeply introspective right now. You're like, oh my God, that is true. So if your child is not doing something more, it probably is because you are not here holding them. Does this make sense to all of you? Right? Somewhere I'm pushing my child, but not ready to hold my child if he or she falls. So this need called security comes when I, as a parent, understand my child is already doing his best or her best. I am not holding them, letting them know you are safe enough. And that is what I need to change. How do I make my child feel safe? First, listen, don't lecture. As parents, we love giving them gyan. See, you can do it. You are the best. See, that person is able to do it. I used to be able to do it. No, your child's brain is unique. And when we set a supportive environment, they will be able to learn. And when I mean support, I'm going to listen. And this is not just listening to words that your child uses. Many of our children are actually pre-verbal. I won't say non-verbal, pre-verbal, meaning they know, they understand, they resonate, but they don't have the language enough to communicate it in the right way to you. So I'm feeling uncomfortable already. So when my teacher says color inside these two lines, I know I'm not physically ready to do this. So immediately my pre-verbal sense says I'm going to get up, I'm going to turn, I'm going to do this. And then we say, sitting tolerance not enough. Everybody is very silent, thinking I'm sure. Am I making sense to you? Sitting tolerance is quite a myth in many ways. If I want to do something, I'll find ways to sit. If something is easy for me to do, I will find ways to sit. If something is something I can understand, I will find ways to sit. It's only the things I do not understand or cannot complete because I do not have the skills, I will get up. Are you all with me? Now, those of you who are really interested in this session decided to sit, no? Now, if this session is not good, after some time, I'll see the video will get muted and there'll be no person. And I'll keep saying, please switch on your video, please switch on your video. But I'll be talking to just a black tile. Sitting tolerance, in my opinion, is when I have set a goal for my child that's not particularly appropriate. If the goal is appropriate, my child will sit. Can we take that as a yes from everyone? So if your child is not sitting down, please see, how can I break this task down? How can I change this task so that my child's existing level of skills are capable of pushing them to the next level? If my child is not sitting, is it because the task has no meaning? Now it's like teaching me physics on Zoom. Physics was a subject I struggled with. As it is, even if the teacher was sitting in front of me, physics did not mean anything to me. And then on Zoom, I'm so fascinated by all these things, and you're teaching me physics. Will I be fascinated by seeing all my classmates and all that? Or will I be fascinated by you telling me that this is whatever, like this is the third law of gravity or whatever? I don't even know the words, okay? So I'm just saying. So what makes sense to me will make me sit down and participate. What does not make sense to me will make me want to escape because I'm not feeling safe enough. Are you all with me? Right? So now I want you, for your own sake, to understand how we make a mistake as parents. So those of you who are sitting as 1 and 2 and all that, you will really enjoy the activity. But those of you sitting individually, let's talk about how we can do this. Okay. So now, just imagine, now all of you can see yourself on the screen, right? So I'm going to ask you to look at yourself in the screen, and I'll close my eyes, don't worry, okay? So look at yourself in the screen, and yeah, don't worry, I'm very accommodating like that. So what I want you to do some crazy movements, random crazy movements, but really fast movements, okay? So ideally I would have asked you to move to the back a little bit and then use the whole body. But since we're sitting down, I want to talk so much about sitting tolerance, do all this drama, and then after you do it, I'll tell you the second part of the activity. Are you all ready? Okay. So now you can see yourself even if you mute the video, right? So if you feel, oh no, she'll watch me and all, and you don't trust me, it's fine. Mute your video for a couple of seconds, do crazy movements and see yourself. Okay. And you should have at least 17 crazy movements. Are you clear with the number? 17 crazy movements, see yourself, and then I'll come to part 2. Are you all ready? 1. So if you want, mute yourself. Otherwise, I'll close my eyes. Ready? 1, 2, 3, start. Okay. Stop. You were the people who decided to record this session, so all this is going to come even if I didn't see. Okay. But now, what it did to you also, when you came into the session, all of you were very serious and all that. Now it loosened you up, but that's not where I'm coming to. The second part of the activity, most important part of the activity, please repeat all those moves in the same order. And you're saying, man, I was doing crazy things. I don't even remember what I did. And this is the first myth in learning, which we say, look at me and learn. I will do these things. You can also do it. What happened? Everybody's very seriously thinking, oh my God, this is what I've been doing to the child. And saying, you don't know this also. You don't know this also because the body cannot learn by mirroring. Am I making sense to you? This is the biggest myth as teachers and as parents, because we believe if you look at me, you will learn. We never learn through mirror neurons. We don't. That is okay for basic things like, how to walk, how to talk and all those things. But when it comes to higher learning, mirror neurons don't work. And I'll give you an example. A maths teacher came to me once and she said, ma'am, I'm a great teacher. I mean, she's certified herself, but she says, I'm a great teacher and I teach very well, but my children are able to do the task in the class after I teach them. But when I ask them to do it at home as homework, they're not able to do it. Where am I going wrong? Then I said, show me how you teach. And she said, I get the naughtiest child in the class to read out the question. I make him do this, I make him do that. Then I put the numbers, I make the children every step they follow me. And then in the end, she said, every step I've guided them, ma'am. So what have you done? Every step in the nervous system, you use the mirroring part of the brain, saying, mirror me. I will write 23, you write 23 on your book. Are you all with me? Now, you realized when you did all these random movements, you yourself forgot what you did, right? Did the brain keep a track of what you did? And then you're telling this child who's already struggling with learning, you mirror me and then you remember whatever I did. This is how we destroy learning in the brain. If the child needs to learn, he or she needs to have an experience, right? So security first, and second, knowing that children do not learn by mirroring or looking at us. If we really want to teach our children, we need to look at the learner. The first rule in learning, look at the learner. Because what the learner is doing will give us feedback into how they will learn. What does that mean? So the first input to the brain goes through the mouth. Okay, so that's because it's in between the left and the right hemisphere, and the input goes this way. So when you find that your child is constantly like this, or whenever you ask a difficult question, is fiddling with the mouth, it says that I'm not yet able to differentiate the information. To this child, if you keep on pressuring them, you'll find extreme tantrums because their brain is not able to make sense of the whole information. Second, hands. There will be children, the moment you give some task, they will be using their hands or they will be fidgeting with their hands. That child is still at the level of using their hands. They still need objects and manipulatives to learn. To this child, you use a board, you use a presentation, you will not achieve anything. Are you all with me? Then there is the third level where the child uses all the large muscle groups. This is the child that's not sitting down in one place. They'll go under the table, look at you from somewhere else, and we're calling all of them ADHD. There is a small percentage of children who do have neurological issues because of ADHD, but many children who are moving are actually processing information. So if you've taken a small child out to the restaurant, you'll notice they pull out straws, pick up everything, go under the table and all that. That's because the new environment is something they've not yet explored, and they're using their body to explore that. Are you all with me? That's why as parents, you'll tell the teacher, ma'am, at home he's quiet, only in school he's not okay. At home, he's already looked at the entire environment. His body already understands it. In the school, the body has not yet made sense of that. And you're calling it sitting tolerance problems. Am I making sense to all of you? Right? So going back, where I would like us to understand, look at the learner means see where they go back. So are they moving? When they're very disturbed, are they moving? Then it's telling you they're still processing information through movement. So your methodology needs to involve movement. It needs to use the whole body. It's only last that vision comes in. In between that, they will have throwing down. So you'll find tantrums, throwing things down, because a child needs auditory ways to deal with it. And this is the child when he or she is writing and say, hey, and you say, shh, and the child's writing will also stop. That's because they're using the auditory channel to process information. Without understanding this, we are saying, hey, shh, shh. Others are also getting disturbed. I need to process only if I hear my voice. All of you are very silent and serious and everything.
I have a question.
Yes.
What if the child keeps shaking his legs?
The lower body is emotional regulation. Lower body is emotional regulation. So it's a sign of stress. The child is finding the task very stressful and has to regulate emotion, right? So what I would do, how old is the child?
10.
10. So I would bring in a lot of activity. So you can go Google up crab crawling. Please look for crab crawls. You can do a little bit of crab crawling with the child. It helps a lot. I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
So we'll move to the next.
Sure. We keep saying don't shake your legs. It's nervous problem. That's not true, right?
Not nervous problem. I would just say, ma'am, that see, when suddenly emotion comes in, my brain should be able to take it in and say, okay, this part should be wasted. This should go here. This should go here. It should regulate like a traffic policeman. But what happens for children who have difficulties, or who have never been taught emotional regulation, it goes in and then body doesn't know what to do. So it's just, going to different parts and it has to come out in some form. It's a raw energy. It has to come out in some form. See, now when suddenly my power went out, there were a lot of emotions because I was so excited about doing this, and I'm so tech disadvantage. Like I wouldn't know what to do. So I was trying to figure out using all the possible resources how to do it. There were emotions, but they were not fear. There was disappointment. Why did I not learn how to sort this problem if it were to come? And then fortunately Gayatri was very kind. So the moment she was very kind, my body said, don't worry, there are people who are waiting for you and they're patient. And then I felt calm, I felt supported, I felt secure. The very rules I'm talking about. Am I making sense? Immediately, I was able to figure out how to use it and I came back online. Right? So many times what happens, don't shake your leg. I'm already overwhelmed by emotion. And then you're saying, don't shake your leg. You're adding to that overwhelm and the child's movement increases. And then you're saying, okay, let's medicate this child and calm him down a little bit. Why will I dull the child down when I can regulate, when I can teach regulation? So instead, what I would do, in fact, one of the psychologists in NIMHANS also has this problem. So he has installed a cycling contraption under his table. So when he's talking to client is always cycling. And this is a psychologist. This is a psychologist who has a diagnosis of ADHD. He's not taking medication. Now, I just want you to know, if we can just understand these, we can do something. Now, for me, I need to speak with my hands out. Like if somebody comes and gives me a remote control and says, change the channel and all, I won't know what to do. I'll just tell you, you take care of it. Leave my hands free. Because if you tell me to keep my hands down and speak, even my volume will go down. Because my brain thinks when it moves. My brain cannot think when it's sitting. My best ideas come when I'm exercising. Right? And you'll need to find how your child learns. And so if that movement is there, please don't restrict it. Instead, use it in a more productive way. That would be the way in which you take it forward. So if I could go to the next set of rules. So the first was security. The second rule is belonging. My child needs to feel a part of the class. My child needs to feel a part of the family. And I have so many examples where, in fact, one of the teachers I used to work with, she had one child who was extremely smart and so-called intelligent and all that, super duper state ranker. The other child was someone who had a lot of complications at birth, and he had a lot of challenges while he was learning. He's a very sweet child, very empathetic, very kind, very concerned. But she would never take her son out for weddings and functions because she was ashamed of him. She would say, he will spoil the family name if I take him. And the child never felt part of the family. And whenever he would come for counseling or for his therapy to me, he'll say, Aarti ma'am, can I just stay in your house today? Because you want me, my mother doesn't want me. Okay? I think at some point we need to understand that maybe they have differences in learning, but I've never seen a purer heart ever. Each child who has come to see me has been a reflection of what I consider God. For me, God doesn't have a form. God is just those special children who come and resonate so much of love. Am I making sense? Right? So the key is belonging. And if I don't feel belonging, I will not be able to learn. I need to feel safe. I need to feel like I belong to this class, belong to this family. Otherwise, I'm going to seek belonging by misbehavior. I will do things so that you say, come and sit next to me. And I say, oh, when I'm sitting next to my teacher, I belong to the class. Or when my father comes and reprimands me, that's the only time he's paying attention to me. That is my belonging need that I'm meeting. Are you all with me? When I make my child feel belonging without using negative punishment methods, it becomes much, much easier. Coming to the third need, encouragement. And this is where I want to differentiate it from appreciation, good, a very good star. Please stop dumbing down children with all these things. All this very good, super, star, sticker. No, they are not animals. They are human beings. How is appreciation? Appreciation is when I let my child feel loved. When my child says, my mother, my teacher loves me. That is encouragement. Encouragement is not great job, lovely writing. That's very American, very Firang. Please, let's stop that. Real appreciation is when my child says, I'm trying my best and my mother or my teacher knows that. That is encouragement. Are you all with me? And I'm also not reducing my child's capacity by saying, oh, he can only do so much. Like, wow, this was great. Shall we try it again? And then this time, introduce a new variation, a slight challenge, and say, we played it like this before. Let's play it differently now. You say, now I'm going to give you a more difficult worksheet. Why do you want to do that? Just make it very gentle on the child and say, yeah, we played this game. Now that rule you know very well. Let's play it with new rules now. And the child feels, yeah, I can do this. And that is encouragement, because I come from a place of love. I come from a place where I believe my child can. I'm not going to test my child. I'm going to join my child. Stop testing children. Join children. They will definitely work with you. There will never be a behavior problem once you join your child. Because when you work from love, achievement is in the process. It's never in only the outcome. Whereas when I work for the outcome, I'm going to be testing, saying, okay, next set of goals, etc., etc. And I'm going to reduce my child to a machine that can do things. Instead, I have to believe that they're a person who's in a process of learning, and I can support that learning as an adult. And this is where I would come to encouragement. The next most important, support, don't shame. Support, don't shame. Come here, show me what you've done. And the tone itself is like, I know you wouldn't have done really well. Come, let me see. And you're like, okay, can do better. Try harder. Is this how I taught you? And the child is saying, I took all the courage that I had in my system to come and show you what I've done. And instead of saying, I like all these things, and maybe we'll work on this next time, I'm saying, can do better. And the child feels shattered, like, what's the point in trying? Because she's never going to be happy with what I'm doing. All of us, we do better when we feel encouraged and supported. Isn't it true? Right? Whenever somebody supports us, we feel like doing more. I think we should give that to our children as well. So coming to the last need emotionally, communication. Okay. So communication, it's not that instructional communication. Come here, sit down. Let's finish these 3 goals today. Communication is where we sit with the child and say, there are 3 things we need to do today. Which one would you like to start with? There's a difference, right? Instead of saying 3 goals, come, it has to be done in 40 minutes. You say, okay, I think we have 3 things. I like this one, but I'm sure you like something else. So you tell me which one you like. And the child says, wow, this is another way to look at it. And the child feels you're giving security, you're giving belonging, you're giving encouragement, you're giving support. And now you're communicating all of that through the way you're communicating it. And then our fear will be, ma'am, if I become so friendly, he'll take advantage of me. He'll take advantage of me only if you're not consistent. Do we take advantage of people we love? Or do we love them more? We naturally love them more, right? That's also true with our children. Taking advantage comes when I think I'm superior and the child is inferior. When I love somebody, I believe we are one. And when I work this way, I'm able to achieve a lot more with my child. So are you ready for the next lung, the left lung, which is learning? Okay, I'll quickly do this and then we'll take questions. Sit up straight again. Some of you are already like thinking very deeply, breathing very deeply and all, but good. If it's made some small changes in the way you look at your children, I'll be the happiest today, right? So breathe in deeply and focus on your left lung. Okay. So what I'm doing now is 20 years of my work. And I'm just going to give it away to you as long as you use it well with your children. There are 5 levels of learning. If we understand the 5 levels of learning, our IEPs, our ways of working with children will change. So sit up straight. I'm going to do all the 5 in activities so that you will remember them. So the first one, close your eyes. Close your eyes. Don't worry, no funny movements and all. You're going to be aware of yourself. So keep your video on. If you can, put your video on. so that I can see you as well. And with your eyes closed, I want you to become aware of breathing in and breathing out. You don't need to change anything and kill yourself by taking a deep breath, but just breathe in gently, breathe out gently, letting your body know that you're aware of the breathing. Now, become aware of your stomach, your abdomen. Are you feeling hungry? Are you feeling stomach full? Are you able to become aware of that sensation? Also, become aware of thirst. Do I feel thirsty? Do I need a drink of water? Or do I feel thirsty? Become aware of that. Some of you may have a yes answer, some of you may have a no answer, depending on your body. Next, become aware of your bladder. Is your bladder full? Is it empty? Become aware of the bowel movements. Have you voided it? Is it full? And then open your eyes. Now, if you notice, when you isolate each of these movements, they give you so much information. But the brain is always processing this. Are you all with me? Right? This first need for learning is called introception. We call it introception. If I do not have the awareness of introception, setting any other goal for learning will not work. So if a child does not know this is hunger, this is thirst, this is my need to use the restroom, this is the time my bowel movements are going to be. If I cannot even understand that at the level of the nervous system, trying to say 2 plus 2, 4 is probably the worst goal. Because then what your child will have, some days excellent performance, some days nothing. And then we start saying maybe this is impulse control hyperactivity. No. What happened? Everybody's very serious. I mean, if I see the faces, everybody's looking at me like completely shocked. Okay. I've spent 20 years doing this, so I know that I would first make the child body aware, give them a lot of activities to understand the needs of the body. And this is where air conditioning, if you notice, I still don't use air conditioning, because when there is air conditioning, I actually suppress a lot of introception. Are you all with me? So how do I start with introception? Start having regular habits. Same time to bed, same time to wake up. Same time for toilet habits. Eating habits every so many hours, finished in 20 minutes. Set the routine, set the biological clock, because the moment you set it, in learning. Without setting this, child is wearing diapers at 14 years without a neurological problem, just because I've not made him aware of his need to use the toilet. I've not taught the child this much food is enough. This is stomach full. Without teaching stomach full, what am I going to teach about task completion? A lot of very serious faces, but I want you to think, because learning is such a process if we understand it. Ready for the next level of learning? Yes. So close your eyes again. A lot of eyes closed activities, because we become aware of ourselves, we become better aware of our children. Okay? That's why I called it resonant parenting. Okay? If I understand myself, I'll understand my child. So close your eyes. And this time, we're going to use another part of the brain. First time we used one part of the brain, we're using another part of the brain. And all these parts of the brain are needed for learning. So the second part of learning, become aware of what you can smell. As you're sitting down in your home, there are different smells. One of our friends said she's in the kitchen. I'm sure you're getting the best experience, but the others probably are in different places and you're getting different smells. So focus on the different smells. Focus on what you can hear. There are probably sounds around you, inside your room. Listen to what you can listen to. Next, pay attention to what you can taste. I know you're not eating, but I'm sure you can still taste. Bring your awareness to your skin. What are the sensations you can feel in different parts of your body? You know, where there is clothing, there is a different sensation. Where there is elastic, there is different sensation. So pay attention to the different sensations on your body. And with your eyes closed, what can you see? Most of us can see with our eyes closed. You get images. So pay attention to what you can see. And open your eyes. All of you are very calm after this exercise. I know. This is the second level of learning. Second level of learning. Sensory inputs. Once I'm aware of interoception, bodily function, my brain is ready for the next, which is multisensory learning. So I give them a lot of hands-on, let them touch, let them smell, let them taste, let them see, let them manipulate, bring in object level. Are you all with me? Without working on this level, directly going to symbolic, cat, cur cat, child won't learn anything. Are you all with me? What happens is, because we are so excited to teach the child, sometimes anxious to teach the child, we miss the stage. If you miss the stage, the child will learn sometimes. Sometimes they will guess. They'll be waiting. Is my mother smiling? Is my mother nodding? They'll be waiting to see what your response is to give the answer. Are you all with me? The symptom, the problem is that you've missed out multisensory learning. A lot of parents are feeling very like this uncomfortable with what I'm saying because you probably pushed through the stage and say, no, he's already 11. I can't be doing multisensory. Doesn't matter how old you are. Sometimes when you hold objects in your hand, you learn better. Let it be. The brain needs a hand. The hand needs a brain. Even today, when I don't understand something, I'll tell people, give it to me. Let me feel it. They would have given me instructions how. Oh, by the way, I don't know how to use a TV remote. Don't laugh at me. I never learned. Okay, because I don't watch television. I know some of you looking at this weird one doesn't know how to watch TV. I don't. Okay, nobody taught me how to use a remote, so I never learned. Now, if I want to learn, I have to use it hands-on. My nephew can tell me this is the on switch, this is the off switch, this is how you change the channel. But till I use it, I will never know. Similarly with our children, the hand needs a brain, brain needs a hand. Am I making sense to all of you? Yes? We'll go to the next rule. This is slightly movement. Okay, so we'll play. Normally I would have paired you in a group, but since we are doing it online, all of you are here. And as children, I'm sure wherever you grew up, you played with your hands. You had games that you played with your hands, fingers and hands. Yes or no? And I'm sure you had a lot of games you played. So please show me some games that you played with your fingers and hands as a little child. For me, I can remember. Okay. Any other games you played with your fingers and hands? I used to make shadows. Any other games? Any other games that you can remember? Okay. Oh, some of you making butterflies and all that. So you know that you played with your hands, right? And later on you can remember some more games. I'm sure we all had these games, like especially in Tamil Nadu, we used to play with our fingers.
Chandana Chandana.
Oh, thank you for the game. And you can probably teach it in the next webinars. Gayatri should probably have a webinar for games that we should teach each other. But jokes apart, what I'm saying is the third level of learning involves the cerebellum, or the movement part of my body, the musculoskeletal system. After sensory input is muscles. If I don't use my muscles, I won't get muscle memory. This is where children will be very good with oral work, will never know how to write, because they've not used the muscles in the body to create a pattern. And you'll be saying, I'll get him a scribe, I'll get him this, I'll get him that. What I'm trying to tell you is the child is not used muscles to develop something. So let them learn to use muscles. Are you all with me? Fourth level of learning is emotion. Okay, so we have the triune brain theory. The base of the spine, what we call the brain stem, is what we call the reptilian brain. This is the one that will attack. So let's say now, Usha, I'm just going to take you for the example, just like that. So let's say I insult you. I just picked up random, okay? Not that I chose to attack you, but now I just attack Usha. Now what will happen? The moment somebody attacks me, Usha's reptilian brain, like a reptilian brain is the one that will pick up this. So, oh, somebody is attacking me. So how should I respond? And there are two ways it will respond. One, it will attack back. Okay? Normally, if you attack a reptile, it will attack back. The other response is even more better. It says, oh, I can't attack this person. She's the one handling the session today. She's in a more powerful position. So what should I do? The other reptilian behavior, camouflage. Let me just blend in. Okay? So that's when the child doesn't have a skill and you punish the child says, ma'am, your dress is very nice, ma'am. That's called camouflaging. Nee nalla amma illa, like you're a cute mom, no? All this is camouflage. Am I making sense to all of you? Whenever you threaten your children, you say, oh, don't do this. Ma, you're such a sweet one. And we'll be thinking, oh, my child is so loving. No, they're coming from the reptilian brain because they're feeling insecure. Are you all with me? Now, the next one is the mammalian brain where I feel emotion. I feel love. I feel warmth. When I am able to make my child feel from the emotional part of the brain, they're able to move to the third part of the brain, which is the cortex, the thinking part. Many times, when we put our children through remedial education, special education, they've already been pulled out of a regular system. They're made to feel that they're not good enough. We just appreciate them from time to time and all that. They're functioning from the camouflage part of the brain. They're not yet connecting with you, and so they're not able to reach the cortex. Are you all with me? Yes. And the fifth part of the brain, fifth part of learning is learning from the cortex, where I give instructions, where I give tasks, where I give worksheets, where I give all of these things. If I do not take care of my child in these 5 stages, at least I should be able to identify where to go back. So simple rule, if there is no body awareness, go to body awareness. If there is no sensory awareness, go to sensory awareness. If there is no movement, go to movement. That's where sitting tolerance comes in. Stop medicating sitting tolerance. Allow it as a way to learn information. Use their movements to bring in input for the brain. I've found a lot of success with it. Then work on emotions. Let the child feel encouraged, supported, and belonging. All of this, communicate with them, and then work with the cortex. So I'm going to open it out to questions, if there are questions. I think I've spoken for a whole hour now. I hope it didn't go so slowly. I hope it went fast, because if it went fast, it means it was interesting. If it went very slowly, then it means it was boring. Okay. So I hope we can take some questions. We'll take some.
How do you manage performance anxiety?
See, when you say anxiety, I'm not going to add performance or anything else. I'm just going to say anxiety. Anxiety is when I want to control the outcome. Anxiety comes only when I want to control the outcome. Meaning, I am not going to focus on the here and now, but I want to control that thing. So whenever a child or an adult has anxiety for anything, it's because they are so future rooted, they're not in the present. So as a teacher, as a parent, I need to bring them back again to the brain stem, bring them back to breathing, bring them back to drinking some water and calming their system. Then let them focus on what I can do now. If I can focus on, let me remember these points, let me recall these points, bring the child's focus back to the here and now, any form of anxiety goes down. Okay. And as a parent, where I would ask you to look at anxiety, don't give messages to the child saying, if you don't study, you'll fail. I'm ashamed of you if you fail, those kind of things. Because then you're also saying, don't focus on the here and now, focus on your performance. If we focus on the now, the performance will be taken care of. Are you all with me? Right now, yeah. I have another meeting at 2 o'clock. It's already 1:30. If I focus on that meeting instead of focusing on this meeting, do you think I'll be able to participate with any of you? Not at all. So I'm going to focus here. I will do my best here. And if I finish at 1:58 also, I can still do my 2 o'clock meeting. But thinking about my 2 o'clock meeting, if I mess up my 1:30 meeting, all of us have wasted time, right?
No, but
Am I
how do
making-
I teach the child?
Let me finish the question. So I'm coming to focus on the here and now. Start with the physical body again, sensory inputs again, movement in the here and now. And the child will bring back emotions to here and now. Learning will not be performance driven. Learning will become control driven in the present. And that is how it helps. Yes, ma'am, you had a question.
No, no. It just followed. Oh, you're talking to me.
Pardon? I didn't hear you.
I was asking that it's a self built for the by the child, and how do you teach the child? Like, it doesn't happen at home or in school. I mean, it happens in a new surrounding always. For example, some new he knows he or she knows they are being tested every time. When you go out, they get tested, right? A psychologist test or whatever. So there is always anxiety to prove their level, and easily gives up when they know the answer is not what they are expecting, seeing the other's emotions. So how do you teach the child to calm down? It's okay, even though we tell it's okay, the child is not happy or
The first thing, test only when it's really required. Okay, because somewhere we have to stand up for our children. We have to stand up and say, enough of testing. I already know what my child's diagnosis is. By repeating the diagnosis, does it change? This thing of testing. We can test the first time, get a diagnosis, that is fine. After that is in our intervention. Does anybody grow? And I'll give you an analogy, ma'am. Does anybody grow taller by measuring their height? Then why are you measuring again and again? Right? I'm 5 feet 9 inches tall. By measuring me every day, I don't become 6 feet 3 inches. Are you all with me? So
Yes.
if you really have to test the first time, get a proper diagnosis and all that. Don't keep going back to professionals who believe in testing. Look at professionals who can support your child. Look at professionals who will understand your child, not diagnose and label your child. Right? I already know I have a cancer. If I go to another oncologist, is he going to repeat all the tests or go by the report that's there? I don't do another biopsy, right? So why should it be only for the mind? And such a relative set of assessments. So, ma'am, I would only ask you to stand up for your child, and that will be the best thing you would do. Okay? I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, thank you. Yes, you.
Yes.
I want to ask the question. We
Yes.
run a school here, like in a classroom of 30 children, to have all these 5 levels of learning, make them set right, and then to take class. What kind of training or we need to adapt as a teacher, as an educator, to bring that system in
And
the
actually,
classroom?
it's much easier in a large class than individually. And I'll tell you why. One is, as soon as you want to start, so let's assume you have a 40-minute period. Okay. Let me give you a simple rule. Age plus 3 minutes is the maximum concentration. So if you have a group of children, say 6-year-olds in the classroom, maximum time the 6-year-old can concentrate is 9 minutes, not 40 minutes. So what I would do first, as soon as the children come in, I could just start with a breathing technique, or I could just, just tell children, now let's do a small activity with our hands. Just do a 30-second activity. It's not a very long. I don't want you to do anything for 40 minutes and all that. Just a 30-second activity. You can just tell children, let's clap our hands like this, 2 of them. And then you can, if you first 2-3 days till you set the pattern, there may be a little commotion in the classroom. Not to worry. But once the child learns that every day my teacher is going to do this, they'll just realize, oh, this is part of the routine. See, whenever something is new, I get excited. Just like the lockdown. First few days, everybody's very excited about the lockdown. Now, after so many days, you're like, when are you going to let me out on the streets, right? So basically, the same way, whenever something is new for the brain, it will do everything. It will overreach. Then it just realizes this much energy is enough for me. So this is where first is start with the physiological aspect. Second, the 3 levels of learning, which is the sensory input. When you make your lesson plan itself, make sure that there are 2 or 3 activities which have at least 2 levels of sensory input. You may not be able to take taste and smell to everything, but you will definitely be able to use touch. You'll definitely be able to use hearing. So try and bring in as many senses as you can for that. Third level, movement. So you can use your brain gym related activities. You can use any of the activities which have the gross motor muscles and all that. And that you can use it as a brain break in between the 9 minutes. So if 6-year-olds, in between the 9 minutes for a 30-second, I bring in an activity. Or when I want the children to do something, I can say you have to stand up, stand on one leg and answer. Or we're going to play the flamingo game. Flamingo stand on one leg. So just introduce it as a game. So when you start making this as a pattern, children start realizing that this is also something that will happen in my class. And it takes about a month to set the routine in place. In fact, even the online teaching modules that I'm developing for schools, we have the same rule. So our Zoom sessions are working much better. We find that the children are optimizing their learning much faster. So that's one way in which it can be done. But of course, there are many, many techniques, ma'am, but this would be by and large the rules that you could use. Hope that helped.
Ma'am?
Yes. Yes, I can see you over here.
இப்ப ஒரு நாவல் படிக்கிற அளவு ஒரு ரீடிங்ல ஒரு கெப்பாசிட்டி இருக்க குழந்தை. ஒரு நாவல் ஒரு சுதாமூர்த்தியோட புக்கு கொடுத்தா அந்த குழந்தைனால ஃபுல்லா ரீட் பண்ண முடியும். பட் நம்ம நாவலோ இல்ல ஒரு சின்ன 1 பேஜ்ல வர ஒரு சின்ன ஒரு காமிக் ஸ்டோரியோ அதை எக்ஸ்பிரஸ் பண்ணும்போது அந்த குழந்தைனால சீக்வன்ஸா சொல்ல முடியல. முக்கியமான ஒரு ஈவெண்ட்டை உள்ள மிஸ் பண்ணிட்டு வருவாங்க. சோ இத அந்த சீக்வன்ஸ் வைஸ், அதாவது நம்ம கேட்கும் போது அந்த குழந்தைக்கு நல்லா புரியுதுன்னு தெரியுது, நல்லா ரீட் பண்றான்னு புரியுது, அவளுக்கும் புரியுது. ஆனா அத எக்ஸ்பிரஸ் பண்ணும்போது குழந்தை மிஸ் பண்ணிடுறா. இது நாட் ஒன்லி
there are two different parts of the brain over here. See, reading, processing. So reading also has comprehension. Okay, there are two parts, receptive parts of the brain. Expressive part is what you are trying to test. Just because my receptive part is okay, my expressive part need not be fully developed. It's developed over time. Okay, what you can do for the child, and I'm giving you 2-3 techniques. One, if the child is good at making mind maps or graphic organizers, you can set a pattern by saying, what was the introduction? Then what are the 3 important points? You can draw 3 hexagons, you can draw 1 oval, things like that. You can use that. If not, you can use physical anchors. What was the main thing? What is this? What is this? The other way to do it is that you can tell the child that there are 7 important points in this one, and each one is going to be a clap. When I clap the first time, let's remember. Second time. So in the Mari, what you have to do is bring in a movement component, bring in a cerebellum component, okay? Or you bring in a sensory component to recall. Expression, just because my ability to receive is strong, reading is a receptive skill, just because that is good, it doesn't mean my expression should be good. By that theory, unga theory na unmaila eduthitta, by that theory, as soon as I learn reading, I should be able to write. Don't push her away. She's asking for attention. Don't push her away. It's fine. Okay,
இல்ல நாட் ஒன்லி இந்த ரீடிங், அந்த ஸ்டோரியை கன்வே பண்ணும்போது இல்ல, ஒரு டே டு டே லைஃப்ல கூட ஏதாவது ஒரு ஈவென்ட் அவங்க கன்வே பண்ணும்போது கூட ஏதாவது ஒரு இடத்துல அதை மிஸ் பண்றாங்க. சோ இத அதே மாதிரி
do we as adults remember everything? Okay, do we as adults remember everything? We miss out 1 or 2 things. So don't take it as an absolute. It's not a life and death situation, but you have to train it. You have to train it by making a pattern, by letting them know there are 5 steps in this. Let the child have a heads up. There are 5 steps in this. What's the first step? What's the next step? What's the third step? So the child will say, no, this was third, this was fourth. So slowly set that structure. Okay?
So but don't expect... அதே மாதிரி இந்த ஸ்பேஸ் மேனேஜ்மெண்ட் குழந்தைங்க இப்ப நம்ம ஒரு இன்ஸ்ட்ரக்ஷன்ல இருக்காங்க, அது முடிச்சுட்டு கண்ணா இதை பண்ணணும்னு சொல்லும் போது ஒரு ஹரியப்ல என்ன பண்றாங்க, இதை முடிக்கிறதுக்கு முன்னாடி அதை கம்ப்ளீட் ஆனமா இல்லையாங்கிறதுக்கு முன்னாடியே அடுத்ததுக்கு ஓடும் போது மெஸ்அப் ஆறாங்க. இப்ப கீழே ஒரு டம்ளர் காஃபி டம்ளர் வச்சிருக்கோம்னா அந்த குழந்தை சோபால உட்காந்துட்டு இருக்காங்க, வேலை பார்த்துட்டு இருக்காங்கன்னா கண்ணா இதை முடிச்சுட்டு அந்த டவலை அங்க இருக்கிற டவலை எடுமான்னு சொல்லும் போது என்ன ஆகுதுன்னா கடகடன் இதை முடிச்சுட்டு
உங்களோட பிரச்சனை இது, குழந்தையோட பிரச்சனை இல்ல. No, this is your problem. No, stop. This is your problem. Let's not blame the child for your problem. Children have to be taught task completion. When they finish the task, introduce the new task. When you are giving an instruction, either mudichittu adha pannu. The brain is not yet learned transitioning. So when you have given it, it starts off the new task. It comes from impulse control, okay, and the difficulty in inhibition responses. But I want you to realize, wait for the child to complete, or you give a visual tab saying, "Idu in the line inge mudicha odane, do this task. When you come to this line, do this task." Give a very clear closure for the previous task before you introduce the next task. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes,
Hello,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Gayatri, read out who has to ask the question, so I would find it easier.
Hello, ma'am. Hi, ma'am.
Would you just put your questions on the chat window so that I can probably read out? That would be easier.
Hi, ma'am.
I'm just hearing "hi, ma'am" several times, but I can't see any of you. So please tell me, whoever, if you have a question, put it on the chat window.
Hi, ma'am. I'm Beena.
Yeah, Beena, tell me.
Ma'am, I have a doubt. Ma'am, when two children are fighting each other, can you hear me, ma'am?
Yeah, I can hear you. Never interfere if two children are fighting.
Okay, ma'am. When children are fighting means for few seconds. Means that fighting time they will throw each other and fight each other, tells bad things, everything. But after few seconds they'll become normal. Means they will be loving each other. So what suggestion, ma'am, you can tell me?
Enjoy the entertainment.
When that children bad, man.
No. See, let me just put it in perspective. Though I'm teasing you. See, when children fight, they fight because nature creates brothers and sisters for children to acquire social skills. Okay. Now, Beena, do you have brothers and sisters? Did you grow up without ever fighting with them? You never fought with your brothers and sisters?
But ma'am, but throwing the things we feel very bad.
When they throw things, no, listen. Here is your discipline structure. You have allowed the throwing of things. When children throw things, make them also clean after that. Am I making sense? After they have thrown things, if you go and keep cleaning after them, they will learn Amma will anyway do it, and they will never learn a new behavior.
No, ma'am, I am making them to clean everything. As soon as they fight, I am telling them to clean everything. But still, ma'am, it is continuing. For that, I just
want. Is the fight continuing, or is the fight ending at that time and they fight at another time?
The fighting end at the time, but means that will continue for 2-3 days, ma'am. That's why I'm asking.
See, as long as the child knows how to start the fight, how to end the fight, and how to clean the place, you don't interfere. Am I making sense? Because if you're expecting children should grow up without fighting at all, then that is not normal childhood. That will not ever work as normal childhood. But here you're having very high expectations that they should do this. Am I making sense to you? Right?
Yes,
you're expecting that. See, can somebody else please mute yourself because I can hear too many voices. If you're expecting that your child should never use violence, right? If you're expecting that your children should never use violence, the only way is to lock up everything and let them not use any objects. And that is also abnormal. When children learn that throwing things is okay, it means one of the adults in the house also is throwing things. It's a modeled behavior. It's learned from an adult. It's not something that the natural brain does. Please check who else is using violence. And if that person changes, the children will change. Please understand that. Okay. The next question, how can you help children overcome peer pressure at school? See, peer pressure is something that all teenagers will go through. And more than overcoming it, what I would have is, as a parent, be a person who will listen to them without judging them. Let them have the freedom to come and talk to you about it. Because when they come and tell you this is what happened, put the question back to them. How do you think we can solve this problem? Never rush to solve the problem. Because if you keep rushing to solve the problem, the child never develops the problem solving ability. So when you let them tell you, maybe I should do this, maybe I should do that, and they find 6 or 7 ways in which they can solve the problem, most children find it easy to realize that all problems need not be brought to the parents. Some I can do on my own. So peer pressure is something that this generation experiences a lot. But what we can do as parents is to listen without judging. And second, help them develop problem solving skills by putting questions to them. So you can say, okay, he's bullying you about this. What do you think you can do? The child may give you some fancy answer. I'll also go and hit him, etc. You can just ask them, okay, if you go and hit him, do you think the problem will become smaller or bigger? And most children will know it will become bigger. So you say, okay, so how do we make the problem smaller? Think of another method. And then you can use one or two small pointers so that the child understands maybe it could be this way also. And slowly together. So you can say, tomorrow try this method and come back, let me know how it worked. And so slowly let the child start finding new ways, because nothing works the first time, nothing works for all children, nothing works all the time, right? So they will have to find ways by gently exploring, and you can be the person who explores the solutions along with them. When camouflage in the reptilian brain, what is the way in which we can help them feel safe and loved? Whenever the child is already in the reptilian brain, don't say anything. Calm down. Because if you keep using extra advising, talking to the child, talking down to the child and all, it will increase the problem. Instead, what I would ask you to do, when your child is already having a meltdown, already having a difficult day, just stay silent. When you stay silent, the child will learn that they're safe. And then when they communicate with you, it may be easier for you to find solutions along with them. Okay? So if you've used physical forms of expression and the child is now physically expressing affection to other children, you can set some basic rules, teach her about her body, let her know that this is my body, I will not allow anybody to touch me. Similarly, you will not go and touch anybody else. So, setting some healthy boundaries will work. So you can just draw lines with chalk piece around her and say, this is your space. Just like this, the other person has space, and you shouldn't go in without permission. And if you really want to show somebody physical affection, you can show it to Amma and Appa at home. Set that boundary. That would be very, very useful. This usually happens when, they're not able to differentiate what is appropriate and not appropriate, and we can set it as a model. As a mother, what do I do when the child is obsessed with gadgets, forgets time limit? Gadgets are not given without rules. So if you have failed to set the rules, remove the gadget, set the rules and implement it. And 1 or 2 times you can pull away the gadget. But before you do any of this, your relationship with the child must have two-way communication. You must let them know when this. So if the child has a disability, doesn't understand time, then you can even show a clock like an ordinary clock and say, you're starting at 10 o'clock. I'll put the sticker at 10:20 or 10:15. At 10:15, when the clock's hand comes here, you will remove the gadget. And you have to be firm. See, if you're a good parent, you need to step up and say no many times. There will be tantrums, there will be arrogance and all of that. But that's because we have not set the routine. And the child knows, if I throw a tantrum, my mother will give it back to me immediately. You need to step up and be very firm. Consistency is the only way to change this habit. Okay? Because many times we become scared that they're throwing tantrums, or if they have seizures and all, the doctor would have told us, don't make him cry, seizures will come back and all that. Seizures can come by looking at the screen. More seizures come from the screen than from crying. So please understand, the internal process doesn't cause seizures as much as this external stimulation. So you can be very, very firm, and be very firm with the gadget rules, because it is destructive for the brain. The more screen time, the less learning. So please be very, very firm. We used to, okay. Does OVS concern of sequencing relate with or have an impact on organizing? So OVS question was specifically all of the executive functions. So when you go online, you will find 3 executive functions, but in my 20 years, I've documented 10 executive functions. So if you understand all the executive functions, it's not just organizing, but it also has a component of cognitive flexibility. It has a component of inhibition response, and it has a component of task closure. So I would work with all of this, but organizing is only after all of this. Organizing comes as a higher order skill. So it does involve sequencing, but it's not only a sequencing problem. There's task closure also. Son is in 12th grade. Confidence level is very less. He needs to get more marks, but he won't. See, if the child is crying when he's not able to do something, he's communicating. whenever a child cries, he's communicating that something is overwhelming, something is difficult. So my role as a parent is to break it down and say, I understand you're crying. When you feel calmer, let's talk about it. Draw it like a map. Draw it like a treasure map. And you can say, okay, you're starting here. Okay, how does this task make you feel? He said, this task makes me scared. This task makes me very upset. How does appreciation make you feel? So take different situations in the child's life and you can ask him, how does it feel? Put it on an emotion scale. So when you're feeling happy, is it a 0 happy or a 10 happy? So let the child also grade the happiness, the sadness, the fear. Then you can say, how do you think we can reduce this fear? How do you think we can increase the happiness? Work along with the child, keep implementing it slowly. And then over a period of time, with the child's feedback, you'll be able to help him with the confidence level. That would be the easiest way to work when the child has a special need. When children study and they forget, we also forget. No. Forgetting is a normal process in the human brain. Expecting the child not to forget anything is like, come on, let's be real. Let's be real. Okay. If I'm motivated and if I participate completely and all, I do pick up about 80% of information, 20% of information, all of us forget. Right now, this entire webinar, I've spoken so many points, but still we picked up only few, no? Now, if I tell you, okay, I'm going to give all of you a test. At the end of the test, all of you have to give me all the points I discussed. And then suddenly video, audio, everything will mute. No. Because all of us forget, no matter how engaging, how interesting. So if the child is forgetting, use another way. Use another method. There are a lot of memory devices, memory techniques. Bring those in. Bring in graphic organizers. Bring in study skills. Just expecting that as soon as I study, I will remember. Some of the things I studied in 10th standard, I'm able to remember only now because I've learned again. Right? So expecting the child to remember just because we have taught them and they've learned is quite unnatural. Break it down. Make it simpler. Bring in some graphic organizers or mnemonic devices or anchoring, kinesthetic anchors. Children will learn better. And I think Gayatri will be able to guide you much better because she's working with your children hands-on. Can we take one more question, Gayatri? Because it's about 1:50 for me, but it would be quite late for many mothers because they've spent 2 hours with me. So
we are very happy to spend, but the problem is you are having another session right now.
No, I've told my people that I will join them. So if I've missed out anything else,
one more, Aruna, you wanted to ask something. Aruna, you were trying to ask something. Can you unmute and ask? You have to unmute yourself. You are muted.
Ma'am, I asked the question previously. It was not about my special child. It is about my normal child. When
even
they
more
don't
reason
have
why
control,
you have to be firm. Even more reason why you have to be firm.
But I am firm. But somehow it doesn't come. It only happens when I every time externally tell him or remind him. He doesn't remember by himself. 99% he doesn't remember.
See, all of us.
And he lacks the self-motivation or control. There is something called he has to learn to control from within,
no,
right?
ma'am, your parenting
can't keep
is wrong.
externally
Sorry. No, your
controlling
parenting
him.
is wrong. Wait, please understand. With gadgets, the chemicals in the brain are different. Dopamine is secreted. Dopamine prevents a child from understanding self-motivation. The task that has been given is wrong. After I've given a task which destroys self-motivation, expecting my child to have self-motivation is abnormal. So the task is wrong. So please don't expect the brain to suddenly develop magical chemicals. Dopamine does not teach you how to stop something. It's a pleasure seeker. Pleasure-seeking hormones will lead to chains of pleasure-seeking and move to addiction, which is why there are so many studies that talk about how gadget usage is like cocaine addiction. Just like a person uses cocaine, they use gadgets. I
don't give gadgets before learning. I don't give gadgets before learning. What I'm coming
the very fact
why
that you have
they-
given a gadget something that is addictive and expecting the child to have self-driven behaviors, it's not possible. A gadget has a naturally wired addictive component in it. You and I had the opportunity to grow up without gadgets, so we don't actually go into gadgets as much as the current generation. This generation has been using gadgets for the longest time. Their entire play has been replaced by a gadget. So they do not have self-regulation. They do not have it. So which is why I need to set it right? Or I need to remove the gadget. I need to be very firm. See, if a child is using cocaine, will you not pull it away from the child?
But what my worry is, another 1 more year he'll go into college. Like if there is nobody to tell him, he's going to do it on and again, because there is no feeling, that sense from within,
And
right?
the gadget is like that. Gadget is like that. The younger people will agree. They lose time. These are
But
called.
how to make them understand to have that? I don't understand that control from within.
Cannot
How
happen.
does it come?
It cannot happen, ma'am. It's like telling a drug addict, don't use cocaine. It is that. It is that. And which is why you need to start restricting it to only one episode or something. See, they may be binge watching 16 episodes sometimes. You need to say only one episode. So give a closure within that. If you're playing a game, then you're playing only till so much time. You have to give a closure within that gadget, not through your reminders from the outside. But there is no quick fix solution for gadget addiction. Definitely no quick fix solution. And yes, the entire generation is struggling with it. If you notice, we meet about 80 to 90 children per day who have gone into severe brain damage because of this. I'm not exaggerating. We have given gadgets without restrictions in the beginning, and so children have started using it without any restrictions. So the only way I would work with gadget addiction is to let them know that they have to set the time. If he needs to, he can even set like a verbal alarm, like, something that rings on the phone saying you have to stop. That's the only other way to work with it, because gadget addiction is dangerous for the brain. It destroys important learning centers in the brain. The prefrontal cortex, if I were to name it, the part that is important for all higher order problem solving, is completely stunted in children who have used more than 40 minutes of gadget every day. When the prefrontal cortex does not grow, higher order skills, problem solving, thinking, emotional regulation, everything goes down. And when emotional regulation doesn't happen, self-regulation cannot happen. So there is no quick fix. The only way to do it is to set alarms on the phone. Like for me, I have a strict rule that I go onto Facebook only once in the morning. Beyond that, I don't. So if people have asked me questions after that, there won't be any answers, because I don't go onto Facebook after that. I have set restrictions. Otherwise, every 2 minutes, I will want to know if somebody has liked it, somebody has unliked it. I use phone calls only half an hour in the day. I know that if I keep my phone on the whole day, if you keep ringing, people will keep asking. I have set limits. And the same way, the person who's using it needs to set the limits. And you'll have to have a clear talk with him about it, because he's intelligent enough to understand it. And please don't treat him like a child. He's definitely an intelligent adult. And he may be using the gadget 50% for entertainment and 50% for learning. So that's why we get confused. Should I restrict his learning also? No. But the learning will start deteriorating, and my entertainment will keep increasing, which is why you need to explain to him. And there are a lot of videos online which talk about the dangers of gadget addiction. I would ask you as a mother to sit with him and view some of these, because together, if you're able to look at ways in which you can set some boundaries, it may be better. And ma'am, I would request you, though I'm very firm on this, it's because I feel very passionately about taking the gadgets away from children. I know how it's destroying their brain, which is why I'm very, very forceful when I talk about it. I don't want to hurt you in any way, but I'm trying to tell you, please step up. The fastest way to protect our children is saying no. Restrict the time. And that will be a form of love for your child. Please don't limit that love you have for your child. And I hope I've answered. I know he's listening too. And buddy, my aim is not to hurt you also, but at some point I want you to know that we care about you. And I hope you feel better soon. I don't want to, put you on video and make everybody see you, but I know you're listening. Just understand that sometimes care looks like somebody is being very forceful, but that care is coming because we understand the long-term impact of it. I hope you are able to find a solution. Thank you for listening in spite of being upset.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Can I hope that's how to teach introception to a non-verbal child. It doesn't matter if the child is verbal or non-verbal. When I set regular routine, and make sure that every day I follow the same routine. It takes about between 21 days and 3 months to set interoception. So give it that much time. Start one skill at a time. First, start with sleep, because that's the pattern that's easiest to set. Cut out all daytime sleep, bring only nighttime sleep, okay? And make it about 8 to 10 hours. Then you work with eating habits, because physiologically children know hunger. Then work with thirst, then work with toilet habits. Where we make a mistake, before setting all this, start with toileting. The child can't do it, not possible. Okay, we have to know the order in which it has to go. So I hope I was able to answer the questions, Gayatri. If it's okay, will we wind up?
Thank you so
I hope
much.
it was useful for the parents and the teachers. And if there are any more questions, you can probably pass them on to Gayatri, and I can probably answer it for you at some time in the future. I hope that will be okay.
That would be wonderful, ma'am. We would like
On
to do
behalf
that.
of
Thank you very
everyone,
much.
I'm thanking you a lot for this wonderful session. I mean, dear mothers, I was telling you that this is going to be one of the best session. I hope you all will agree to that particular statement. So thanks a lot, ma'am. I thank the parents also for asking very, very valid question, because the question asked by one person, definitely it communicates to all of us. All of us are sailing in the same boat only. So I really thank all the parents for your wonderful questions. And thank you so much, ma'am, for explaining the emotional and the learning part, because that is really dear to me. When a child gets hurt or something, that's where even I also worry a lot. When it becomes a question mark, where is the learning happening? So thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot on behalf
Can
of
I also thank all the children who joined us? I think you were extremely patient through the whole session, and thank you so much, because when you sit through something like that, it gives me feedback that it was good. I'm really grateful to each one of you. I think you're so beautiful as you are. Thank you for letting me know. Sorry, I get emotional when I speak to all of you, but thank you.
Don't get so emotional.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for letting me know that this session was good for you. I can take adult feedback, but when children sit through a session, I know it made a difference. So thank you so much.
Aarti ma'am, you missed my question, ma'am. Please take the question. It is very important, yeah. My daughter is waiting for your reply. Please check.
What is your question? I don't even know who you are, so tell me.
Angita ma'am, can you ask the question?
Yeah.
My daughter is Bhagyasri. She is a 19 years old girl. She is always impatient. For example, she is fond of reading this Vanida, a magazine. It is twice a weekly month magazine. When this present situation, I am here in Muscat and we didn't get that magazine. She is waiting for every first week of the month, and since she knows that the problem is that here Vanida is coming from Kerala. So still we are keep on saying that Bhagya, you have to wait for months, yeah. So she didn't understand her sibling.
What is her diagnosis? What is her diagnosis, Sangeeta?
Her speech and everything. She's a delight child, yeah. Now she completed her 12th in Indian school, Darset, and now she
I will explain it. She's got development delays with dysarthria, mild autism.
Okay. Can you put her on the? Can I see her, please?
Bhagya, can you come?
See her?
Yeah.
Okay. What is your name? What is your name?
Bhagyasri.
Okay, Bhagyasri, can you look at me? Can you look at me? How will books come from India to Muscat? In what vehicle will it come to Muscat? Do you know how from Kerala, how does the book come to Muscat to you? In which vehicle will it come? Will it come in an aeroplane or will it come on a ship? Do you know how it comes? Will it come in an aeroplane or will it come in a ship?
Say Bhagya. How does it come?
I'll wait for your answer. Don't worry. I'll wait. My meeting is not important. You are.
Sangeeta ma'am, you leave her. She will answer. Sangeeta
No,
ma'am,
don't
you
teach
leave
her.
her.
Let her answer. She knows the aeroplane. Okay. So, Bhagya, now from Kerala, see in Kerala you have Kochi Airport, you have Kannur Airport, and you have Calicut Airport and Trivandrum Airport. In all 4 airports, there are no aeroplanes, and they are not coming to Muscat. Okay. When the aeroplanes start from here, your book will come to you. Okay. So when the aeroplane starts, I will tell Gayatri ma'am that Vanita is on the way. Is that okay? Can you wait till the aeroplanes in India start and bring the Vanita book to you? Can we wait?
She is giving a very good answer.
What, Bhagya? Can you say, Bhagya? Can you wait?
Yes.
You tell Malayalathala paranja. I will understand.
No, I understood. Well, thank you
Now you
so much.
understood. Glad.
I
I'm
like
glad.
you.
I like you too.
I
You're
like
very
you.
beautiful. I like you too. Thank you. Thank you for understanding. Thank you for
Okay,
the
ma'am.
opportunity. Thank
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Aarti ma'am. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.
Aarti ma'am,
Yes,
I
sir.
am watching your session. It's wonderful. You are a German person, understanding the problem of our present education scenario. And also your words are golden words. I am listening. I am watching your YouTube videos. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for giving the good service to the entire mankind for listening this program also. And also I am appreciating Gayatri ma'am for this type of an opportunity to give it to us. Thank you, Aarti ma'am, once again. Keep on doing your good work.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
God bless you, dear.
May God bless you.
God bless you.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aarti ma'am. Thanks a lot.
If there are any other questions, just pass it on to Gayatri ma'am and I will see what best I can do to answer.
Sure, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. It was a nice session.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
ma'am.
Thank you
so much.
Aarti ma'am, I think she left, and I'm going to have this group for some more time because I'm trying for another one good speaker. So if that happens, because I don't know, it's not confirmed. If that happens, we will have one more session. Otherwise, after this week, I will wind up the group. And I hope you all got benefited. Thanks to all for coming up and joining with us.
Thank you,
Thank you so much, Gayatri.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. So can we end this
Thank you,
session with all your
Gayatri.
permission?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. Yes.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Gayatri.
Thank you,
Bye.
Gayatri.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.